Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of What It Takes to Be a Rock Star. I'm really happy you're here today, and I'm excited because this week I'm chatting with Ryan Smith of the band Crusasis. And this episode hits really close to home because Ryan is actually my boyfriend and my bandmate, and we literally recorded this episode in our home. So, yeah, it is really close to home, but I wanted Ryan on because we've been musical collaborators for over 10 years now, and we've been dating for 5 years, but we played music a lot before those years that we started dating. And I play in his band, I play drums in Crusasis, and he plays drums in my band, Francie Moon. And we've done tours together. We've toured as a duo, with me playing drums for him and him playing drums for me, and we've toured together as a rhythm section for the band Tea Eater. We did a tour last October in Europe with them, and we even traveled without playing music together. So I really wanted to get Ryan on the podcast because he has a pretty unique perspective on music in that he's done it from a lot of different angles. He's played a lot of different instruments in a lot of different bands in a lot of different genres. He lived in New York City for 7 years, and during that time, he did busking on the street. He is trained in saxophone, so he did like wedding gigs, he did R&B gigs, he did jazz gigs on sax. He played in a cover band. He was a hired gun, and he had a DIY metal band that he drummed and he sang in that he booked tours for many years. And currently, he has his band Crusasis, which he sings and plays guitar in. But most importantly, I think, is that he even tried to step away from music for a while. And during those times when he tried to step away, he actually spent over 2 years traveling on a 1984 Honda Sabre, which is a motorcycle. And 5 of those months of the 2 years, he parked his bike, but he went to Asia, and he spent 2 months in Vietnam, and he's driven over 60,000 miles all over the US and all over Canada, and he rode around Vietnam on a different bike, but he did it all really cheaply, like on a budget, and he was mostly living out of a backpack and out of a tent. And after all that, he ultimately came back to music because of the essence of what it is and what is most important about it for him. And that's what pulled him back. But he came back with a whole new perspective, and I really wanted people to hear about that perspective. And this episode also touches on the sacredness of music and the dance between pursuing it as a career and playing it just to feel the powerful connection to it. So we talk about the realities of building your life in a way to be flexible enough to play music as a career. Because oftentimes, most of the time, to be flexible enough, you're putting other things in life on hold, like other dreams and other opportunities, other parts of who you are as a person, in order to be flexible enough to play music. And oftentimes, this could lead to feeling like you're falling behind others your own age. And oftentimes, musicians don't advance in a regular career while pushing for their music. Because if you're going away to tour a lot, it's like, why would a job keep you? They'll either fire you, or if you're lucky, they'll let you come back. But like, other people will be advancing into the, more important roles where you're like more needed. And, good luck trying to buy a house on like a super random income. And in my experience, I always had a foot out the door and one foot in the door with every job that I had, because I always thought if a tour came along, or like I wanted to just get up and go, like I could at any moment. And like, maybe it's because I didn't grow up all the way, or maybe it's because that's like exactly what you need to make a music career happen. So if you watched the Grammys recently or heard anything about it, you probably heard about Chappell Roan's speech, where she called on the labels and the industry in general to offer a livable wage and healthcare to artists, and especially developing artists. And she actually got a lot of praise for this, and she also got a lot of pushback, which I thought was wild, but I personally love the speech, and I think at the very least, what happened is this opened up a really important conversation, and one about the realities of the working class musician, especially in the United States. And if you continuously work a lower paying job that you throw your whole life and other opportunities away for, at some point it really becomes a question of self respect. Like, if you stick with it, are you hurting yourself, or are you just investing your time into your career? And when does the investment become too much? And when do you stop? And can you even stop if you tried?
Alrighty. So, my first question for you is how did you start with music? Like, please tell the listeners everything that got you into music or why you decided to pursue music.
So I think I played when I was like you know grade school or whatever, like saxophone when they ask you to pick an instrument or go to choir, and uh, I wasn't really interested in it until well, so when I was really young, I made like raps up, like joke raps off of like Super Bowl commercials and stuff. Like I had a Budweiser rap and a Coors rap, all about beer. And like I had one called My Disgusting Candy Apple, but I couldn't spell disgusting yet. So I wrote Dust King. And I would sing or rap for my parents during commercials and stuff. So I was really young doing that. And then that was kind of just having fun being creative like that. And then I didn't connect with the structure and the strictness of like band playing sax. I took piano lessons for a little bit. My sister was really good at piano, and I didn't like the structure of that. It wasn't until the teacher brought out this Native American. It was called like an Indian tribal thing when I was a kid or whatever, and it was like dun 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 dun, and I would play it so heavy, like playing piano percussively. It's the first time I saw that because usually it's like Fur Elise or something, and it didn't attract me when I was a kid. So that those are my earlier memories, and then really though, as like a 13 year old, I had older kid in my neighborhood get into punk rock, and he showed me punk, and I heard like H2O and Pennywise and No Effects, and it was just so crazy and really cool. And it's not on the radio. It was for my dad tried to get me into stuff like 70s stuff. Like I remember My Sharona. He gave me a tape cassette of that, and I would listen to it as a kid, and I'd be like, "This sucks. This is so boring." But now I can appreciate that, and I love a lot of the stuff he loves. But I wasn't into it till I got like hit with the punk stuff. Um, I started playing bass then. My brother, who's 12 years older than me, he got me into the bands I would still love till today, like Clutch and Primus, and uh, he tried to get me into Pantera when I was really young, and my mom heard him playing Cowboys from Hell for me, and she was like, "Turn that off! Like he's too young." Um, but Clutch and Primus got me into playing bass, and I would learn all those punk songs and stuff, and that's when the music bug really bit me. Was when I got introduced to a lot of good stuff, but also at that age, around 12, I started turning on. I feel like in terms of like consciousness, I stopped being like a kid who was like, oh, go outside and run around and like play video games and all that. And I remember specifically one day in my bedroom thinking, I'm alive. Like, how am I alive? Like, this is so weird. I don't get it. I didn't choose to be here. I was having like an existential crisis, like a 12-year-old. And my mom heard me crying. I was like hitting the ground, I remember. And she was like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't know why I'm alive." And she's like, "Shut up, it's fine." Like, just she
Oh my gosh.
she like shut it down, like uh she probably wasn't that mean, but she was like, "It's okay, you're gonna be fine." And I was like, I don't know what this is going on. Who are you? Like, that's my feeling. And that's when music like saved me in the feeling, because it just was um so powerful emotionally. And obviously, like, listening to the lyrics of like metal bands or punk bands, and they're all like, existential, and like Corn I loved when I was a kid. And it's like, struggling with being alive and those sorts of things. And yeah, stuff like that. So
That's awesome. What was it about music that helped you with that feeling? Was it just the lyrics, or was it like it gave you another kind of feeling that helped you get out of this existential crisis you were having?
yeah, like I have two really big memories of discovering one of my favorite bands, Opeth, and Radiohead. And when I first heard The Drapery Falls by Opeth, I just started bawling, because I never felt emotionally anything like that. It was so beautiful and it was so deep. And it was just the music. It wasn't, the lyrics were there and they were really cool, but it was the music. And then I heard Hail to the Thief, um, that album, the first like track or two, just same thing. It was just so beautiful, so deep, so complex. And then I could phase out a little bit of those like Corn and punk stuff, which had its things, but these were much more complex. They weren't just like, I'm angry or I'm sad. It was like, I'm overcome with just more than I can express. It was more than you could express, but that's how I felt. I felt like life was something just beyond words. So, but the lyrics were always cool, and they were a powerful part of the art, but the sound was the thing that like got me.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned playing bass first. So, how did you get into that? Like, how did you get your first bass, and like what made you choose to play the bass first?
It's real simple. My dad asked me and my sister, like, do you want a bass or guitar for Christmas? And he got us Squire, Fenders to start playing music with the little amp. And I picked bass because I was in the Primus and I heard Les Claypool just making the most interesting sounds. And I was like, he's better than guitar, bass does it all. Like, that was my thinking back then. I was like, there's no point to play guitar because Les Claypool can just do that on bass.
You heard it here first, folks. Bass wins.
Yeah, we can now, put guitar can go extinct and bass can just rule.
Well, scientifically, I saw there was a study, and scientifically, it was proven that bass is the most important instrument because it has the melody and the rhythm. So you
Yeah.
made a good choice.
Yeah. Bass is scientifically the coolest instrument.
Hello, hello. I just wanted to pop in for a moment. This is Mel of the future, and just say that I really appreciate those of you who had supported me on Buy Me a Coffee this past week. That was really kind, really awesome. I'm really grateful for the support. It helps a lot. And if anyone's interested in supporting in that way, there is a link in the show description below. And if you can't support monetarily at this time, just hitting subscribe or like or following or sharing it with your friends really goes a long way. It's a huge support, more than you would think. And also, I wanted to let everyone know that I started a Discord channel for the podcast so that anyone who's interested in kind of chatting more about the conversations that come up on the podcast can join the Discord. So that is actually linked in the show description below as well. And also, I have a playlist linked of all the guests. And if you aren't watching already, you can watch this episode on YouTube, along with other episodes. So I just wanted to let everyone know those little announcements. All right, enjoy.
So you started with bass, and then what happened after that? Did you start a band? Like, what was your first band
Yeah,
like that?
well, my dad got me, I was into drums too. I was playing sax still in school a little. My dad would get me snare drums and I'd play him in the basement until I broke the head, and then he'd get another one. Really cheap snare drum. So I had like five broken snare drums or something in the basement. 'Cause he didn't know we could replace the heads. And so he just grabbed like another cheap used snare drum.
Were you just
Um,
playing snare drums, or were you playing a whole drum set?
it's just snare with one little cymbal, and I'd probably just like just so angrily like beat the thing.
Didn't
Uh,
realize that.
yeah,
I thought maybe there'd be more drums, but
the drum, yeah,
that's
they
funny.
came later. And
Wait, what? So when did you get your first snare drum? Did you just like come home with it one day and said, "Here you go"?
I can't remember. It might have even been before the bass, but they were around the same time. And then, but I didn't get a drum kit till a little later. So I started playing bass, and I found a couple kids in high school, and these kids would really shape my life for sure. In no, in middle school. So I think around seventh or eighth grade, um, really foundational experience for me was jamming every day, like 4 hours or more, like the whole afternoon during the summer with Steve Maloney, John Mazza, and Harrison Worshpa. My friends, I could walk to Harrison's or to John's house, and he had an attic. Um, and I wasn't doing drugs. Steve was smoking weed. I think Steve and John would get high, and we'd play. Me and Harrison didn't yet, and it was just the most amazing thing, though. Just creating music, not speaking much, at all. Like we just would meet up and what's up, and just hook up and just go. I realize I'm so fortunate for that. I don't know how many people had that experience. So eventually, Mazza wasn't really into the band thing entirely, but me, Steve, and Harrison made a band. Um, we were called Utopia.
Nice.
Yeah, and then realized that's a terrible name because that's like a city, it's a place, and so we changed it to Euphoria because it made more sense. But we weren't great, but we were really pushing it. We were trying to play like Opeth Primacy. We were influenced by like Sabbath and Fish, just all these different really good technical bands. So and we were not good enough for that, like technically. So we tried. We it was the songwriting mainly. I realized like my role though is generally I fall in to be a band leader. I have a lot of ideas, so I'd bring a lot of ideas and they would bring some ideas, but mainly they would write really cool things with, the parts, and yeah, it was great though.
Right. So it was Euphoria was your first band.
Yeah.
What was your first show?
Probably Utopia was it wasn't even Steve wasn't even in the band yet. I know we were jamming already, and we had these other guys. And the first show I can remember was at my high school, and I played drums while Harrison played a Black Sabbath medley of like War Pigs and Paranoid and all that. And I never heard the songs yet. he, he never played them for me, or I never asked to hear them. So I played drums just jamming on his Black Sabbath songs. And then I think we did a Bowie cover where our friend came up and sang Ziggy Stardust.
Nice.
Yeah, so we were just it was horrible too, but but it was really fun. Yeah.
What age was that?
I don't know, like I really don't know, 14 or something, maybe 15, I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
And during those first those years when you were just jamming for like hours and hours at a time, was that the time in your life where you were like, I want to do music forever?
Probably, yeah. I mean, music became just the thing I was most attracted to. There was nothing in life that was more powerful. Nothing. I mean, I got into drugs around that time, and drugs were something I really loved too. I did constantly as a like 14, 15-year-old uh with music. And yeah, I think I don't know, like just what's important in life or what you choose or whatever, like, or career, like it was just I never thought in those terms. I think we are just having like chemical procedures happen in us constantly. So when you find music and it creates those chemicals, or drugs and it creates those chemicals, subconsciously we're driven as people, to like uh, I guess chase these things, that these powerful foundation uh, building things from our youth. That's why there's so much psychology about like trauma in your early years, but also what you're attracted to is based on that and what drives you. And I had incredibly powerful experiences with music that have shaped my entire life, like I don't make decisions as much based on it, that uh my life has been shaped by it, like unconsciously. um so I never really thought like I was like, I want to be in a band and I want to play, but it was more just chasing the feeling of being in that whole thing, the feeling of being in the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of decisions in your life have you made based upon this subconsciousness of essentially wanting that feeling again?
So it's like a hindsight 2020 thing. Because you just look back and see, all the jobs I've chosen, um, supporting myself uh, as an adult, have been based around flexibility and availability to go on tour, or to just play a lot. And music has always just taken such a precedence. Out of everything I've done in my life, I've probably spent more time playing music weekly than anything else, like, consistently as like something you do. Obviously, breathing and eating might go, go first, but um yeah, music, it's just the most consistent thing I've stayed in touch with. So like subconsciously it's really chosen my path in life. Like I'm an artist, whatever that means. I definitely am. I don't think of it as some great thing. I don't think of it as a low thing. I think I became entranced by this powerful you could look at it like a force. It's like a force of nature, what we do with music. Um, and I believe me, like, better than anybody, but I've tried to get it out of my life so that I could have a more stable life. Like, or even just like when I traveled without playing music for a bunch of years or playing it seriously. Um, it was I was writing music during the whole thing in my head. I was always thinking in terms of music. When I have a life lesson, I always relate it back to music, or either writing music or what it means to learn or be in a band together. I always end up thinking about my musical relationships. And I mean, do you choose that? Like, I never made a decision to choose, bouncing my life off of music. So it's just how it kind of has played out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that. And yeah, I want to just get a little bit more of the groundwork that you did with music so people understand like where from and what perspective you're bringing, because you have a lot of interesting things that you've done. You've trained as a saxophone player. You've done the New York City, uh, New York busking, and you've pushed really hard in the New York City like metal scene. And you've done DIY tours, you've done DIY recordings, you've tried a whole bunch of things, even stepping away from music. So can you just give a little bit of a rundown of like your early 20s, like what you did there, just to give a well rounded, I don't want to leave anything out of like who you are
Yeah.
as a musician.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try and just gloss over it all because yeah, it's true. I'm extremely varied with what I've done. Uh, I play a lot of different instruments and I played all these different genres and um, so the other band I had was Tree Splitter, which was really important in my like high school years, and that was like a jokey. We would just hit record on a computer and write albums in real time. I'd figure out a riff and then we go, okay, let's do it. And the songs would be ridiculous. They'd be about like mole men under the earth or the sun exploding or Darwin and evolution or some kid in our school who, we want to sing a song about. And we had like 10 albums. And we did a mockumentary of ourselves too. And we put it in um, the film festival at our high school and got last place. And it became like a cult hit. Like 5 people in high school were like, that was the best movie ever. And it was like, anyway, that was a big thing. Um, I studied sax after I got sober when I was 16 because of all the drug shit. I got kicked out of high school and put through a rehab and I actually got sober so I could finish high school. And I put all my energy into learning alto sax. Uh, my mom got me lessons then to help me, you know, latch onto something. And I would play sax in my kitchen for two hours a day. And I got crazy technical with it. I was learning Charlie Parker bebop, like, but I couldn't read music good. So I was in jazz band that year too of high school. And the second seat, my friend Shri was playing alto and he would have to learn the song and I'd listen to him play it. And then I would get the solo, which was so unfair.
Shri.
Yeah.
We're sorry, Shri.
No, we were good friends. He's probably doing really good right now too. But yeah, he was a great player too. But I had a good ear, but I couldn't really read good. So I took sax into a serious direction. I saved up money and I bought a 1929 saxophone, like $1,800 or something. And I just thought like I'm gonna buy this because I'm gonna make the money back playing it, which I definitely did, doing like I was doing wedding gigs. I was doing playing in an R&B band in Brooklyn or in New York City, um, jazz gigs or whatever. This is around the time I was like graduating college, I guess. So there's so much. I was doing that while starting um, my metal band with Johnny, which was like instrumental metal. I played drums in. Uh, Before that, I started a band with a guy, Tim, and we had Father and Son, which was like this weird punk songwriting, but like had some deeper kind of vibes and funny vibes. And we were a two-piece, and I didn't really sing yet because I couldn't sing good, but I would rap and I would yell and play drums. And he was a great singer, so he would sing. And yeah, so I've always had my hand in like all this different genres, all these different worlds, even playing the different instruments. And a couple of my bands lasted a long time. And then within all that, I would be a ringer and play drums for like I probably played drums for 20 bands. And some of them in the early days I was trying to make money with it and I wouldn't play for the love of it. And then the later years it's just been bands that I really enjoy. Um, yeah, so that's like, there's that's up to like 2012. And then Theraroya was my main metal band in Brooklyn. We were playing for 7 years. Um, I played with a band Mountain God for 2 years. Within that, we wrote I wrote my parts with them. So those were like bands I really wrote a lot. Theraroy, I booked all the tours. I booked a dozen tours with Theraroy, and the punk weird experimental band with Tim was called Father and Son, and I booked a tour with that. Um, and yeah, I don't know. There's
I know. There's endless things that you've done, but I just wanted people to hear about it because it is interesting, and you've you've really tried a lot of things
Mhm.
musically, and but what people might not know about you is also how much you've traveled in your life, and I know touring is kind of like traveling, but it's a little bit different. So can you touch a little bit on your touring life that you've done, and then the contrast with like traveling?
Yeah, that's great point because I really do say like we are so lucky if um we're not lucky because it's a lot of work to tour. Somebody is booking it, and that takes a lot of time and effort. It's hard. If you don't have a lot of money backing you, it takes to work a job and to take care of your life and then to book tours. You might make money while you're out there, which would be great. And, hopefully you come back even or close or a little in the green would be amazing. But it's a lot of hard work to tour. But we are fortunate as people to have the experience of touring because showing up in a town, like let's say you're a punk or metal band, and you're meeting the community of punk metalheads, like you're meeting a special community, and especially in America where okay, I'm 22 years old, I'm booking, my second tour or whatever. I'm going to Alabama, and you have all these conceptions in your head of what it's going to be like, and then you don't just go down there and meet um anybody. You get welcomed by a group that is open-minded, and it's there in Dothan, Alabama or something like, just little towns. And it's because there's people there who are passionate and they're connecting their communities with, it's like a neural network, of our band coming down from New York, and they're connecting their local people with us, and now their minds open up and our minds open up about Alabama, and you're never the same after that. You don't think, oh, Alabama is backwoods, or they think New York, they're all up their own ass, or like whatever stereotypes, like um people think. And then you talk and realize, oh shit, we're all people, and it's just appreciate the differences. So touring is so cool to go in town, and then to share your art like that is amazing. And then to hear the local bands, it really enriches your life. But on the other hand, if you're a musician and all your travel experience is just touring, it's very narrow. That is, it's a beautiful narrow view, but you're missing um, a lot of a town, of a country, of people. So as a person, I just have always been. I've traveled alone and toured a lot, and they're both like places I've traveled alone. I'd meet. You'll meet the most random people who have nothing to do with you in your life, and they'll be very friendly, and that's a connection that's even more important in some ways. They don't vibe with you in the same political sphere or lifestyle choice or whatever, but somehow you're laughing, having a good time, or they put you up in their house and let you sleep there, and just incredible kindness. Um, and in the music scene, you're probably just going to be hanging with musicians and more like-minded folks, which I don't think is super beneficial for like being a really open-minded person. Personally, I know that if I just toured, I wouldn't have the full color sphere of like what really a country or a state or a town has to offer. Um, so yeah, I've toured probably close to 20 times, maybe being on other people's tours and then booking my own. And I've been to around 20 something countries and, uh, between Asia and Europe and South America. And, I, I'm just really grateful. I've had all those experiences. Those are um, the core of my life. I don't have a lot to show for my life, but, I guess those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's true. Like a lot of people, they think because you went on a tour and you went somewhere that you actually have been there. And I remember the first time a couple years ago, I got to go to Paris on a tour. I didn't even get to see the Eiffel Tower, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, I was there for like 6 hours, and then we left that night because no one wanted our van stolen or something like that. And it's crazy expensive to stay.
Yeah. It makes total sense for the tour to do that. But then, and that's an extreme example of really obvious, like, yeah, you didn't see Paris, but we just toured in Europe, and got to play Paris. And yeah, I knew I wasn't seeing it in any way. I saw the Eiffel Tower from like 10 miles away. It was like, oh my God. And then we went under a tunnel and it was gone. But to get to play a show in Paris with Parisians and then other bands from Europe playing it was very narrow but special experience. And we got like 8 baguettes that we got to take with us. And so that's pretty much all you can hope for in Paris.
Yeah, and the fog machine was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Say it lightly.
Couldn't see each other.
From like 2 feet away.
Yeah.
They're very talented.
The venue was empty still at that point.
Yeah, they were putting the fog machine out so no one knew that no one was there.
Yeah.
You know what else is as incredible as that fog machine in Paris? Is SAR cables. I love these cables. And SAR cables has sponsored today's episode and this podcast. I'm really grateful because I actually really love these cables. They're amazing. If you're watching this, you will see that it is beautiful and colorful and amazing. And yeah, I love these cables so much. They're the best. They've never failed me. Thank you, SAR Cables, for sponsoring today's episode. Check them out at sorrycables.com. They're amazing little company from LA.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there is so much to talk about with you, but I think one thing that I think the listeners would really appreciate to talk about, and I know it's probably one of the harder things to talk about, it's just like your um complicated relationship with music to the point where you walked away, basically. Not like 100%, but like you said, you touched on it before that even when you were going off, like in 2017, right? You went to Alaska, and I remember you put up a post where you had your special drum key and you're like, I'm going to tuck this away for a little while and put it in storage. And I know from experience, you ended up storing your instruments in random places, random, storage spaces and people's houses. And like, you basically dismantled your music life. And I want people to hear about that because I know there's a lot of people who have done that too, like a lot of friends that like fell off music, but then they come to a show and they're like, man, I just really wish I was still playing. Or there's people who are probably like toying with that idea of just walking away from it because it is hard. It is mentally like challenging for you, especially with like TikTok, Instagram, all these things that are, always so hard to keep up with, especially if like you're not that type of person that doesn't want to like engage in all that, and especially you know, mostly as a band leader, you were running the ship most of the time. And so I want you to talk about like that decision and like what, if that helped you, if that didn't help you, and like why you came back to music, if you could.
Yeah. Uh, so I'd say if you were considering leaving music or not doing it, and you feel bitter, you should. I think you should step away from it because we are not tethered by this, like by anyone else. It's all you. If you can step away, do it. What I found is in stepping away, I wasn't really stepping away at all. I just stopped how I was doing music in New York City, which I was very unhappy and bitter with. Like, I'm not saying I wasn't very unhappy. It was a roller coaster, but I saw the future of it and I was like, I don't see this. I want more out of my life. Like, really, this is what I wish people talked about more. I mean, I want to talk about this because we're only we're only alive once, maybe, right? Even if you're alive more than once, this is your life right now. You're not going to do this again, probably. That's even less of a probability. So these decisions are fucking huge. They're huge. For me to go, I'm going to go to Alaska and put all my shit in storage, quit all my bands. I didn't quit really. I was just, hey, I'm going to Alaska. Bye, guys. Do something else for a while or always do something else
You did
always.
have like a last show I remember going to, or like your New
Yeah.
York
One,
bye show.
yeah, I once the trip was booked, I was like, here's my last New York show. But anyway, to make that decision is huge because I left my apartment of 6 something years. I went to Alaska because I was so sick of being in the city. I'm really a nature lover. And I was riding my bicycle to parks 20 miles away, to just be in a new park and lay on the grass. Like, I'm a hippie dude, like in a lot of ways. Concrete, just makes me go crazy after a while, and crowds. So living in New York is a big challenge. That was a big challenge for my life. So to make the decision to leave and go to a place I was super inspired by, I'd never been before, and I got a job up there to work in a lodge for the summer, and I went. Um, I don't want to make this like about all the things I did, and do a travel log because I didn't have a home again until we lived in Berryville, New York for the pandemic, which was 2020. So I was really traveling without a home for over 2 years, on a motorcycle, most of it. 5 months in Asia. Uh, 2 of those months was on a motorcycle in Vietnam. And the rest of it, I was living in Northern California, on weed farms or out east and going in between on a motorcycle. I couldn't bring any instruments, but everywhere I ended up, I would play music. Um, so it followed me. And like I said, I'd be on the motorcycle just thinking up songs and singing stuff and being silly or serious or whatever. And so yeah, so I spent a lot of years at a certain time in my life being like consciously, I left New York and I was like, I'm sick of music. I'm gonna see if I wanted a backpack too. I didn't want a place. A dream of mine was to live off out of a backpack, um, and not have anything to worry about. And I did that. That was a big dream. So that's another thing to remember. Like musicians, I know music is a huge dream, might be your number one dream. But for me, this is what my story, like, I put my number one dream aside because it wasn't happening how I wanted. And I went for my number two and I totally achieved it 100%. It wasn't that easy. I mean, it's hard to cut ties and to travel as wholeheartedly as I did. People have said that to me, a lot. Like, how do you do that? Well, it takes a lot of sacrifice. Say goodbye to your home and your friends. and jump into the world and hope that it catches you. Like when you land in Taiwan, that you're not just lonely and whatever. And I always found people everywhere I went who I could connect with. And that was a dream of mine. So I put my other one on hold, and it gave me so much perspective. Like when you say, like, it was a big decision to leave New York. And I had times on my trip where I was listening back to my band, Theraroya, the metal band I really poured my heart into the most out of anything I did. And I would hear our recordings. I was like, man, I really loved that band and I loved what we did. And when I left, I loved it too, but I was so um, jaded from the show politics and just people. You put your stuff out, and it doesn't go out as you want. It falls flat, and that's life. So that's part of my experience, and I was tired of it. So it was cool to step away and get perspective and see, well, who cares if it falls flat? I loved making that music. I loved playing with those people, and that's true. And now I'm in, Oregon in some weird little town camping, and I'm thinking about my life. Like, I don't regret. I'm also having an adventure of a lifetime motorcycle camping across America. So I'm not like I really regret it. My decisions though have huge impacts, like I'm not in touch with those band members anymore. Um, but I don't regret that because, like, I wouldn't have had my experience with Eric, our friend, and we started a band in Northern California, which was really amazing to me. And we created a wave there in a tiny town, which had a bunch of international people making cash, trimming weed. And they would go and play music in the coffee shop, and it was this magical place. And I had a band there that was playing. You were playing bass, and our friend Jimmy played bass, and uh, those shows were sick. So I got a lot of perspective of like, what more do you really want from this? Like, I guess the truth is with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff that's comparative, even being in the scene in New York and you're out there seeing shows, you're seeing other bands, there's hundreds of bands, and we're all working hard and going at it at different angles. To do what? To like, I think we all want to make a career, in music. That was my goal. Is like thinking of the title of your podcast, What It Takes to Be a Rock Star. I never wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to play music as a career, I like the title because it's more evocative than like how to have a career in music. That's terrible. So, but for me, like if I could just play music all the time, it'd be great. Um, but so much in the real world gets in the way. It's like literally saying that, like, if I had a career in music, that'd be great, is like saying, if I had a house built for me, that'd be great. Sure. That means nothing. It literally is just like I work in construction now, and like what it takes to build a house, is insane. It's so much work, so much effort, and that's what you're asking for. In music. And a lot of us are trailblazing too. There's no guidebook. We're entrepreneurs in a business where there's no money, generally. Like, so I I I guess like to bring it down to a concise point though, for me at this point in my life, when I'm not comparing myself and my career, my musical journey with anybody else. Um, the essence of playing is the feeling of when you're alone and you have your guitar and you write something and you feel like this energy, and you feel like a battery. You're charging up, and you feel like a generator. You feel like this universal thing. It either you're overcome with emotion or you just feel a lot of energy and you want to share it, you want to release it, you want to share it. So that's the core of this whole thing. It's not I want to open for that band. It's not, oh, that was pretty good show. It's like all this stuff is like I don't care about being judged or this or that. Like I just want to chase that feeling and be as true to that as possible, and to do it with other people is unbelievable. It's a really like sacred thing. And I think I know more than like a lot of people who are in music and don't step away, because when you step away, well, you're going to learn how much it meant to you. So if you're jaded and bitter, like I was, step away, realize what's really important about it. Maybe you'll make money. Any kind of success with it's got to be the bonus, because we're already sacrificing so much in our lives. Like I know the people you've had on this podcast, and we know hundreds of musicians, people who really do music and art and put a lot into it, a lot of time, and like they're making big sacrifices. They're generally in America, especially, they don't have healthcare, good healthcare. They don't make enough money. We really are like poorer than usual, I'd say. And just from my experience and from most of the people I know, and everybody's in a different situation, more or less, but we're doing this thing out of love, like that's how I feel. I'm doing this out of love. What else is there? Because, we're going to die. And, being on this planet chasing some kind of powerful emotion, some kind of powerful communication it's a big, uh, beautiful commitment to make your life about that. And you give up a lot for it, but I don't know. It's just like you are what you are too.
Yeah, totally. I love
Yeah.
the way you describe that, because it is true. That is just the essence of what every musician is trying to do. And yeah, when I talked to Zach from Dead Tooth, we were talking about that. Like basically, everyone just wants like a studio in their basement where they just go and play like all day long. I think most people, at least that's the feeling I get, and I know like you and me definitely feel that way. And I think what's interesting is like there it kind of speaks to like the just the art in itself for doing the art, and then it's like versus the all the crap you have to do to get it to the world,
Mm.
which for people who just want that feeling of making art, doing the other stuff just takes you completely out of that brain state where like you feel so good just making something, creating something that sometimes it almost feels like like you're just in this whole other mindset. I don't go as far to say you're like destroying it, but you're stepping out of that like space that you're in when you're creating
Mm-hmm.
to be like, make some stupid video for TikTok or something. And recently I've been trying to like somehow merge the two, where it's like
Yeah.
I also feel like I'm having fun creating something while trying to get my stuff out there.
Yeah.
But I think you really touched on something really, really important that probably keeps a lot of like really, really, really talented people who are just so artistic and so creative from, and that's no surprise. Like everyone knows that. Like it, and it's why you go to like, you see your family and they're like, why don't you just go on The Voice or like make a cover? And you're like, because I don't want to destroy this like beautiful golden orb of creativity that I have inside of me with like cheapening it almost, you
Mm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Oh
make
yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dance between reality and your mind. I mean, you dream of something. When you're writing, it's almost like you're in the process of dreaming still. And then, so you're in real time. Maybe that's why it's so magical, because as we're writing something new and it's got its hold on us, we're almost suspended out of reality. I think that's why we're chasing it. It's really deep. It's really powerful. Like when we're jamming, this is funny because I don't know if anyone knows this, but this is how I feel. Like we have a band and there was a song, this happens all the time, but we're sitting there warming up and do a warm up jam. That warm up jam is creation happening in the room. And sometimes I'm completely overcome with the whole thing. And that's more important than anything that could happen. Now, getting that jam on a recording and to other people's ears is fucking digging ditches. That's the that's the work of it. That so much you start thinking, your brain comes in, and now you're fucked basically. And you know, then like you got to work with other people and communicate what you want. Yeah, you know, there's more reverb, or I played that part like shit, or that's not what I thought, or like or let me do it again, or this that. Then it gets out there, and you're like, oh, spend $10 on promotion or $10,000, and you know, like it's just whatever, like all that stuff. It's literally like the beautiful act of creating, which is like doing drugs or sex or making music, is like this just unreal thing. And then there's how do you come, you know, I mean, the thing is like, okay, how do you get money from it is one thing. And I don't have my head there anymore. It's like, but how can you actually reach people with it is a, you know, a problem that's big enough. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's my friend Christian, who's an amazing musician. He always put it in. There's different rooms. Somebody told him this way, like room A is the room you create in, and room B is the packaging room. And that's like where you actually get it ready to release. And then room C is all about getting it out there. So you have to put your different hats on in the different rooms, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of like my friends that went to art school because like sometimes you see someone who makes an amazing doodle on a piece of paper and then you know it just is like a scrap doodle and you're like, whoa, it's really cool. But then like someone who went to art school, they know and they've learned how to put that in a nice frame and do the little thing and like get it in galleries. And
Mm-hmm.
it's and it could be the same piece of art, it just now has $5,000 worth of value on it because it was framed correctly, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, or just you know some level of confidence behind it that like, oh, I know what I'm doing because I went to art school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that is that switch from idea to reality thing that is getting out into the world. It's, I don't know if people who don't play music know how much effort goes into trying to properly release a song, and it's just gotten like harder. Like I used to 10 years ago used to just like throw it on Bandcamp and that was it and it was cool, and like maybe some blog person would write about it. And now it's like, no, no, you need like a 6 month pre-plan, you know, with you know, teaser videos and like it's like, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars if you
Mm-hmm.
want to do it right. And it's just like, so it's just this whole side of what it takes to be a rock star, you have to like do these pre-planning things. And luckily there's people in the world who know how to do that stuff and like want to help musicians. But most of the time I just see, hey, you want to know how to release your video, right? You pay me $3,000 for this course, or I'll do it for you for $5,000. And it's just, it's a lot of like salesy things going on out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we were talking about uh, before the recording, like just I was mentioning that music is old. Music is as old as we are, as like, it's hundreds of thousands of years old. It's been happening a long time. Rock and roll, pop music, all that kind of thing. It's like 70 years old, 80 years old. It's a phase. We're in a phase of decadence. I mean, it's the way our world is now. It's gilded, there's a lot of bullshit is really all I'm trying to say. There's an immense amount of bullshit. Um, we're like, I feel like we're in a decadent time, like a bloated time. And it shows itself in music with this like, okay, what are you competing against? You're competing against plastic perfect shit. That's what, the pop stars are, like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, or the rappers or the country stars, or even the best, it's because their record costs, $100,000 to make, and to or more. I don't know what numbers are, but like it's insane. So yeah, people who don't make music have no idea that why my song, you're like, yeah, that's cool. It sounds like yeah, good job, Ryan. Like you should probably just stop, because like it doesn't sound like, the radio thing or the thing on my Spotify playlist. It's like, yeah, it's gonna take I don't know what it would take to get there. And like obviously there's millions of us who we appreciate lower fi stuff, like, and stuff people do, like, the OCs, or just bands that make great albums but they're not huge. And there's a world for us, there's a world within the plastic world, but we're still fighting that. We're fighting a superficial material world. That's like we're at the height of that in our existence. And but music is way more than all this shit. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, sure, that's like um the big problem of today that we're facing, but music will survive. And for us to enjoy our lives, that's what this is really about. Like, enjoy your life. Don't make yourself crazy trying to compete with something that you feel like you have to compete with, but deep down in your soul, this person can't even touch what you have, you know? There's a million musicians, like you said, and artists who are incredible. And like myself, like I feel disenfranchised, but deep down, I know what I have is special, because I really have a connection to something that's helping me feel those magical feelings I keep talking about. That's it. That's the core. And if you can find a group of people who want to play with you often and who feel the same way, I think you can't have more success than that. If you get an audience and uh, money eventually, or something, like becomes a career, that is all gravy. I don't think I won't work for that by doing social media stuff. Like, I mean, I'll do it for fun and I'll try and I'll release something and I'll put it out there, but like that's not my avenue. My avenue is finding people who are like-minded to make great stuff. And, we'll have to invest in booking shows and this and that to get it out in front of people. But like, just enjoy the process of it, whatever that is, even if it's a lot smaller than you think you deserve or whatever. It's like the world isn't fair. Like, the world isn't fair in any way. You're given different cards when you're born. You're given different DNA. Like, we struggle on tour because I'm a light sleeper. I can't help that. That makes me not want to tour as much as someone who can sleep through everything. How can you weigh those cards? Like, is that my choice? No, it's just I don't want to be in that position for weeks because I lose my fucking mind. And it hurts, it upsets my stomach and stuff, So I need different things, And so whatever makes you happy as a person, don't, you know, uh basically like disconnect from who you really are beyond as a musician, and just keep sacrificing to be a musician. That's like, to me, that's like almost an addiction to a more of an identity. Like, I'm a musician and I want this and I deserve that and I should be this and I should be that. That's some kind of idol worship to me of like, I'm looking at someone and it could be a very humble idol, like for me, it was Clutch growing up. I wanted to be in a band of my high school friends, which is what they were for 30 years and have a career and travel in tour buses. You know how like unlikely that is? Like everyone can who wants to do that for that to happen. That's like a lot of unique sets of circumstances. So you got to do what you can to be happy and play as much music with as many good people as you can to be happy, and if you don't want to do the rat race, don't do the rat race of like the social media stuff. And if you feel though like, hey, my stuff deserves more, then do the rat race until you get sick of it, or maybe it'll work for you, But I think just taking control back in this time we're in and knowing that it's a fucked up time and that the truth of it is that feeling that you love with music, the connection to something bigger than yourself that you feel when playing. That's what we're really about. That's what, our minds should be really focused on. Even when we're meeting our friends, who we're playing shows with and we're at the venue and it's like, hey, good to see you. We're all on the same team. There, we're not fighting over it's to me, it's not competitive that like, oh, that band's doing more, getting better. Like we are learning from each other and we're all on the same team because this lifestyle is hard enough. If you're making less money than people who have careers or who have families and who have houses and stuff, we chose we're living this life because this is who we are. It's but now we need to be close with each other. We need each other. Like to be friends with each other, not like um, in competition. And yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, I feel like it was really interesting in 2020 when all the lockdowns happened because I felt like musicians were forced to look at the other sides of themselves,
Yeah.
because they couldn't play anymore. And
Yeah.
it was like, I think it was like a huge identity crisis slash shift for people. And I saw a lot of musicians go back to school.
Yeah.
I saw some turn into like whatever, like literal rocket scientists. Like I saw
Yeah.
people just quit altogether. I saw um, people actually feeding those other sides of themselves because it is true when you do music, it is like all encompassing sometimes, and it is your only identity. It's the only thing people ask you about. They're like, how's the band? How
Yeah.
was tour? People think you're on tour 24/7, 365 days out of the year, even though you've been home for 2 months. Like, you don't get invited to things anymore because they think you're always on tour,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. No, the identity thing is actually something I really struggled with and I don't like about uh music and in general. Like to me, you aren't what you do because you're gonna not do that too, and you'll be doing something else, even if you do it a lot. And that's important to keep in perspective. You're just a person. I don't care if you're famous, like at all. Like it doesn't matter. Uh, it's just like obviously being a good person, being a good listener, this and that. Nobody, but like if you're a musician and you're really trying hard, you forget all that stuff, like because you're obsessed with, making this thing happen. So you're totally right. When I left and I just traveled out of a backpack, it was so great to just go places and be like, "Oh, who are you?" Like, and I'm like, "I'm Ryan. I'm from America." Like, and not say I'm a musician or I do music. Just be a person, not revolved around because, you say you're a musician. Oh, wow. Like what they have all their conceptions about what that means. And then they think, oh, maybe you're actually successful or famous. And then they find out you're not. Like, I've seen that happen so many times in my life, too. Like, yeah, I play music, and you're in some foreign country. They're like, wow, he's in a foreign country playing music. And then they hear my album or something. They're like, you suck. Or like, it's just, it's not what people think, you know? Nothing is what you think, it's what's in front of you. So just like, get over the identity thing and just, be in real time. Because honestly, if you're meeting somebody they might not say they're a musician or anything, they could make something more popular than you could. There are people who are really good and come at a different wavelength of creation, which like I think these are people where, um working with in this world, who come at a different length of creation, like wavelength, where it's more they see what's like uh what's hot or what's attractive now or what's gonna work. And it's way more of a mental looking, and the song is more mental, and it cuts across a clear message and this and that. That is like such a different way of creating than like I feel. Mine always feels more amorphous and wide and strange and wild, and there's other people who have this like message that's like coming across. And so you don't know who you're meeting. Maybe they could be in, making something more than you, and you're the musician or something. Like my mom growing up, she would say, my sister could sing, but I couldn't. Like I was bad at singing. I couldn't sing on key, but so my mom would be like, "You play the instruments and Kate will sing," which really hurt. As a kid, I was like, "I want to sing." Like, even though I suck right now, she got all these voice lessons growing up. But then I worked my ass off, and now like I get complimented on my voice all the time, and I take it's really nice to hear, but like people compare me to Jeff Buckley, which is like insane because seriously, like until 2014, 10 years ago, I couldn't sing at all, basically. I worked for 10 years singing my ass off. Like I would do a lot of open mics, and I would sing in my anytime I could. I sang really seriously. I would sing in the shower and all that. And so all I'm just bringing that up to be like identity is like I could choose the identity that I don't sing and I just play. It's just it's not. There's no reason to tie onto it. It feels good to be a part of like a group or something or this or that, but we're so much more than like just choosing some uh confining thing. Like if I want to make art instead of music, or if I want to go do construction or be a bartender or get a career or what, none of this changes who I am. Like it's all possible. Everything's possible. I could live here, I could live there, so yeah, I think that's important to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, I want to just ask a couple more questions. This has been amazing. Thank you for sharing all that because I know it's probably not something, most musicians want to, talk about, even though it's like very, very real, like all these complicated feelings
Yeah.
with being a musician.
Well, I definitely feel they're complicated and it's hard to talk about, but mostly because I just feel like stupid talking about it. Like I apologize if it's just been like confusing or diatribe, but I don't feel like it's hard to talk about as a concept. I wish people just got on this level more. Like I don't I don't understand why we don't, to be honest. Because I think a lot of people are feeling deeper things than like, oh man, I want to play a better show or or I want to play a bigger show or you know, just like the logistics of like what it takes to be a rock star. Like the logistics of okay, what do I do putting brick by brick? That's all. I mean, I've heard your podcast, like it's all so important and everybody's dealing with it. And it's how do you put your next foot in front of last step. But the way I look at it is like theoretical and experimental, like physics. Like you need the theory too. The theory is all the thoughts and the feelings that drive the engine. The engine is, am I going to release this on, disco or whatever, DistroKid, and am I going to get a booker? Am I going to get this? I got to talk to this band. I got to, you know, f book a show with three other bands, all that stuff. Like I've heard you talk about it a lot, and I could talk about that solely too. But the theoretical side and the emotional side of like what it means to be a person making music in 2024 and just trying to be alive and balancing your dreams and goals and aspirations and growth, is it's I don't understand why we're not talking about it more. So it's hard and it's weird and clunky, and you probably say things you don't mean entirely or whatever, but like trying to figure it out is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people could relate, definitely,
Yeah.
because, yeah, it is really, it's a lot of emotional stuff going on with making music and making the decisions. And as the years go on and you get older and you're deeper and deeper into it, the reality of your decisions really sets in. Like we were
Yeah.
talking yesterday, we're both in our mid 30s, we don't own a house, we don't have like these stable careers with the health insurance and all that. And that was just a choice. Like, and that, that's been a choice. But like
Yeah.
you're saying, it's like you even tried to step away from it and
Hmm.
you couldn't, because it's just like who we are essentially as people.
Hmm.
And, it's not like we've been getting handouts from people. Like we work too on top of it. Like we're both, not we didn't get any like inheritances or wealthy. We live in a tiny, this is our tiny little house that we live in together. And it's, so the reality of your decisions as years goes on gets more real. And so the emotions of it also gets more and more real. It's not like we're like 20 anymore and,
Yeah.
woo, we have, 10 years to, to just screw around and figure it out. It's like now we're so deep, we're so deep in it.
Yeah. No, and I just like to add to that like it's hard to say these things and then it not to feel like it's interpreted like you're complaining, and that's where I'm really passionate about like, look, that's why when I say these experiences I've had of traveling and touring that are my life, that they are what I have. And that's what I traded so much for. And that's what it's all for. Like there was a trade, and we got something that other people don't get, like flexibility to be in the world and to share art with people for till 35 years old. Very special thing. The trade was big though. It was a big trade to not have to, I see this is the problem with older musicians. You see your friends who have kids and families and careers really making real money, really having security. Like it's a joke, like money doesn't buy you happiness is I think that's the dumbest like cliche. Once you have a certain amount of money, totally true. But if you're worried about getting hurt and healthcare and food, you're worried about your food bills. You're not there. You need more money to feel okay. So we're trying to figure that out while being artists. And that's really like, because I have the comparison of my family, and it's like very hard. It's always in my face because to me, they're much more successful materially. Everybody has done much better. My dad, my mom, my sister, my brother. And I'm sitting here, I'm 35, and what do I have to show? But, they don't make me feel that way though, which is I'm very lucky. Um, because they know they can see from their side what I've gained. And just this year, I've been to 11 countries and played 20 shows in 7 different countries. I still have the flexibility to travel. That tour we just did and my travels after, I mean, I'm only back under 2 weeks. Uh, that was a huge life experience. I don't know what to say it it will do for me. I don't think it'll translate to making more money or whatever, which just seems to be like that's what this world is about. It's about money and material. Like that's what we are always kind of fighting up against. But I have to come to terms with that. I traded, you know, whatever I could have had, or if I was a different person, to be this person here and to have those experiences. And there's no part of me that's like whining about it. Like, I get it. You know, I get what they have and what I have and why it happened. And that's okay. I'm still not like, I want it to be better from my side. Um, but so do they, I'm sure, in their own, the lives that I don't live. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I know that is a big trade, but seems like you don't regret it though, because it just seems like
Yeah, there's no regret because again, like I really don't feel like it's a paradox because we're saying we choose this life, but I don't really feel like how can I regret the things in my life that happened that I look back at and I say I could have gone a different way, but in those moments, when I went to Alaska, there was no staying in New York. In my body, in my soul, I was sick of New York summers. I couldn't handle another fucking oven of a summer in New York. I just couldn't do it. And so that's where I went. And now I look back and I'm like, what if I didn't? And I stayed playing music and I was 10 years deeper into my music career. It's like, okay, what just I'd need an alternate universe to ever figure that out. So I don't spend any time thinking about it. But
yeah. Well, what are my last question for you? What are your plans for the future? Then is it just to just keep on, uh, searching for that feeling?
well, it's definitely that's the core. But like all the physical, I have a vehicle, and that's Crusasis is my band that you're helping me drive, and our friend Eric who plays bass, you guys are helping me drive that thing, and in the real world, and we're playing shows, and I've had other friends in New York like Ozzy and Char, help me get that thing out there, and Jimmy. Um, Tar and Brahm. Everybody who's helped me play in the past couple years has been really helpful. I mean, you've helped me the most because you've helped me uh just uh I guess give me motivation to, and also Francie Moon has been more established longer. So for me to be on bills with you was just really a easier way to get back into this, and I appreciate that a lot. So that's like the real logistical stuff, and I want to keep doing it. I want to just write music, and it's just do what I've always done. The thing I'm struggling with is always to interpret it the healthiest way. That's my big struggle with music and my life. And at the end of the day, one of my biggest inspirations was always Bukowski, the writer, because, whether you like him or not, he didn't get any recognition at all till he was 50 years old. It's like Van Gogh, too, like he got no recognition in his life, and now he's one of the biggest names in painting ever. Anyone who's done anything uh, groundbreaking. I mean, not anyone, but so often in history, like, scientific discoveries like Da Vinci or, I know the guy said, we go around the sun and, they're completely ignored or, killed or whatever. Or like great artists, aren't appreciating their time. And I don't consider myself in that realm, but what it inspires me of is like, okay, well, if the outcome isn't what I want, which is like at least some kind of audience. If I don't get that from my minimal time in room C, if I spend all my time in A and then we play some shows and that's where I am and I don't get, what I really want in room C of like, getting out there, just to be okay with it because, there's so much time. Like I might write something that resonates down the road. I might find someone who I really enjoy recording with and get a relationship and record great recordings with. You know, anything can happen. So I just will have my foot in the game and take it day by day of like um just being definitely feeling that feeling that of playing music and trying to have more of that feeling and then all the other stuff around it just take it as it comes and you know I'll be inspired by you and always like just see what you're doing in the real world and I'll piggyback sometimes and do things with you like a TikTok vid or something just for fun but
You heard it here,
yeah,
folks.
yeah. I'm gonna be a TikToker. Um, but
Imagine that.
no.
I mean, you, for those of you who do not know, Rai is like the last person on earth who would do it on his own.
Yeah.
But if I do a little convincing, you would do it. And
Well, yeah, it's just for fun,
yeah,
and um, I don't know, but yeah.
cool. Anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to say to the listeners or the viewers today? Anything you could think of?
No, I mean, I think I said a lot. I'm really grateful to be on your podcast and because you have a lot of people I really admire on here. Um, and just grateful for the community of musicians that I've had in my life who have played with me or I've been playing with or just seeing and knowing and I hope I like I this is the kind of stuff that I really am feeling a lot and like dealing with more so. So I'm happy. I hope it helps them, like our friends or anybody else who's listening who I haven't met, who could relate to some of the more existential stuff. That it's. I mean, this is why people have therapists. Like, it's important. It helps getting your vision clear and a happy life with what you're doing is really important mentally, emotionally. It's not just all about like play another show, like put out another album, like make sure your house is in order too, mentally and emotionally that it's really what you want to be doing. So I hope that anything I said could help like, give back in that way. But,
So thank
yeah.
you. And I'll
Thank
be sharing in the show description the links of how to check out Rise Music, which is all recorded by himself, every instrument mixed, mastered, everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And tune in next week for another amazing episode. All right, bye bye.